Leja from World Bank. And we have other discussants from Korea, so we will introduce them at the round table discussion. Okay. Okay. First, we will ask Dr. Jack Oh of his opening remark. Yeah. First, yeah. So opening remark. So you first, please.
I think here we have only two what is the foreign English-speaking guest, Mr. Steve PERKINS and also the Mr. Binyam Reza. So first of all, I very much welcome both of you to today's seminar. And then from now on, I will speak in Korean. Okay. 여러분 반갑습니다. 교통연구원 원장 오재학입니다. 오늘 뭐 우리 저기 광역교통청, 근데 지금은 또 이제 청이 아니고 또 뭐 약간 커미션이라고 해야 할 것 같은데 코미티는 좀 아니고 위원회라고 한국말로는 커미션하고 제가 사전을 찾아봤더니 커미션하고 코미티하고 둘 다 위원회라고 하더라고요. 그래서 좀 읽어보니까 코미티보다는 커미션, 어떤 행정 엑스큐션 파워를 갖는 걸로는 커미션이 더 적절하지 않을까 생각이 드는데, 하여튼 뭐 오늘 그 세미나 사실상 이제 가장 어떻게 보면은 그 법제화하기 전에 입법하기 전에 가장 마지막 세미나, 지난번에도 마지막 세미나를 했었는데 오늘 또 다시 또 한 번 더 세미나를 해서 또 확실하게 굳히는 정리를 하는 겁니다. 그래서 사실 오늘 우리 정병구 의원님께서 굉장히 바쁘신 와중에도 이렇게 오늘 이 자리를 빛내주시고 또 의미를 이렇게 확실하게 의미를 굳히기 위해서 오늘 이렇게 바쁜 시간에도 시간을 내주셔서 우리 세미나에 와서 축사를 해주신 것에 대해서 진심으로 감사의 말씀을 올립니다. 사실 우리 김 의원님이 굉장히 중요한 역할을 하셨어요. 시정일관. 이게 처음에 정부 조직법으로 이걸 한다고 그랬다가 이제 다시 또 약간의 또 부처 간의 이견이 있어가지고 지금 이제 대광법, 대도시 광역교통 관리에 관한 특별법을 어멘드먼트를 해가지고 개정을 해서 이걸 이제 그 위원회 대도시광역청 혹은 대도시광역위원회를 이렇게 설립을 하는 그런 방향으로 가서 이제는 뭐 더 이상 아마 이견이 없는 걸로 부처 내에서도 그렇게 이해를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 오늘 세미나는 제가 우리 스티브 퍼킨스 씨의 발표자를 읽어보니까 상당히 내용이 메시지가 분명하고 정리가 잘 됐어요. 그래서 우리 현재 앞으로 그 추진하려고 하는 입법화의 내용이나 또는 앞으로 이제 더 중요한 게 이걸 운영을 잘해야 하지 않습니까? 오퍼레이션을. 그래서 그 오퍼레이션 관점에서 혹시 지금부터 미리서 좀 준비를 해야 할 사항이 없는가 하는 것을 다시 한번 점검을 해보고 점검을 해보는 그런 자리가 아닌가. 그래서 우리 전문가들의 의견을 다시 한번 또 수렴을 하는 그런 자리가 아닌가 생각을 하고, 제가 생각할 때는 뭐 오늘 또 지금 보니까 어제 이번 주에 들어와서 지금 또 미세먼지가 좀 극성을 부리고 있지 않습니까? 그래서 사실 이 미세먼지하고 교통하고는 또 밀접한 관계가 있고, 그래서 아마 우리 대도시교통광역청의 설립이 이런 어떤 출퇴근교통 문제, 교통 혼잡 문제뿐만 아니라 수도권에 있어서의 또 여러 가지 환경 문제까지도 함께 들여다볼 수 있어 개선할 수 있는 그런 좋은 계기가 아닌가 그렇게 생각을 합니다. 그래서 다시 한번 우리 정병구 의원님의 그 여러 가지 그 지도와 그 다음에 노력에 감사를 드리고, 이번을 이제 마지막 세미나를 해서 이제 다음번 세미나를 할 때는 이제 법이 통과된 후에 앞으로 어떻게 그 운영을 할 거냐, 대도시 광역교통위원회나 청을 운영을 할 거냐는 주제를 가지고 또 내년에는 다시 한번 또 얼굴을 볼 수 있는 기회가 있습니다. 오늘 아마 좋은 토론이 될 것 같습니다. 고맙습니다, 여러분. 네.
Thank you very much. Next, we will ask member of National Assembly, Byung-guk Jung, for his congratulatory remark. Please.
예, 반갑습니다. 제가 영어로 하지 못해서 죄송합니다. 오늘 이 중요한 그 세미나를 개최해 주신 우리 한국교통연구원의 오재학 원장님, 그리고 OECD 산하의 국제교통포럼께 함께 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 특히 오늘 발제를 해주시는 스테판 퍼킨슨 교수님께 감사의 말씀을 드리고요. 토론에 함께해 주신 여러분들 정말 감사합니다. 원장님께서 말씀하신 대로 저는 지난 19대 국회 때부터 광역교통청의 필요성을 절감을 하게 됐고, 그래서 그때부터 이 법안을 제출을 했습니다마는 19대 때는 이게 폐기가 됐고 20대에 들어와서는 마침 새롭게 출범한 문재인 정부의 대통령 공약이었기 때문에 심도 있는 논의가 진행이 됐습니다. 그러나 우리 원장님께서 말씀하신 대로 이게 제가 의도한 대로 청이 아니라 협의체 형태의 대도시권 광역교통위원회로 위원회를 설립하는 방향으로 지금 논의가 되고 있습니다. 참 안타깝기 그지없습니다. 이게 논리가 없어요. 이게 왜 청이 안 되고 위원회가 되어야 되는지 여러분들이 잘 아시는 바와 같이 위원회는 예산권도 없고 또 거기에 대해서 인사권도 없습니다. 자체적으로. 그렇다 보니까 어떤 의사결정을 하는데 지금 수도권 교통본부가 있듯이 또다시 그러한 결과를 반복하지 않을까 하는 걱정이 앞섭니다. 지금 이걸 반대하는 사람들의 논리가 광역교통청을 만들게 되면 지자체가, 그러니까 지방자치제를 훼손할 수 있다는 논리를 펴요. 저는 도저히 잘 이해가 가지를 않아요. 그래서 무조건 자치단체가 쪼개서 일을 하는 것만이 진정한 지방자치제냐, 지방자치제도의 효과 있는 일이냐 하는 것을 보면 저는 아니라고 봅니다. 제가 구체적으로 이 법안을 만들고 또 이것을 꼭 실현해 보겠다라고 해가지고 한번 동탄에서 아침 출근 시간에 내려가서 거기서 그러니까 아침에 집에서 나와가지고 버스 타는데 가장 가까웠다고 하는 데서 버스를 타고 똑같이 와봤어요. 그리고 퇴근할 때도 똑같이 한번 가봤어요. 그러니까 도어 투 도어로 하게 되면은 3시간 정도가 걸리더라고요. 과연 거리에다가 한 사람이 24시간 중에서 3시간을 길에다가 뿌려놓고는 그 사람의 삶이 행복할까 우선? 이건 저는 아니라고 생각을 합니다. 그리고 경제적으로 보더라도 과연 경쟁력 있는 우리 경제가 될 것인가 하는 것을 생각을 해보면 아닌 거죠. 그런데 논리, 그러니까 비합리적인 논리를 가지고 이 부분을 저해하는 게 저는 잘 이해가 되지 않는다. 그래서 오늘 우리 발제를 해주시는 우리 스테판 퍼킨슨 교수님이나 세계 각국에서 오신 저명하신 전문가 여러분들, 또 우리나라의 전문가 여러분들께서 좀 더 이 문제, 이게 확정이 된 게 아닙니다. 왜냐면 당정 간에 협의를 해가지고 지금 이게 대도시 광역교통위원회로 간다, 이렇게 이제 얘기를 했다고 하는데, 이게 이제 해당 상임위원회에서 더 논의가 돼야 되고, 그리고 본회의를 통과를 해야 되기 때문에 그 과정에서도 좀 영향력을 미칠 정도의 논거로 좀 우리가 원하는 광역교통청이 될 수 있게끔 하는 세미나가 됐으면 하는 기대를 갖습니다. 다시 한번 오늘 이 좋은 중요한 세미나를 개최해 주신 우리 오재학 원장님을 비롯한 관계자 여러분들께 진심으로 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 고맙습니다. 죄송합니다.
Yeah. Thank you for your congratulatory remark. It's because he has been involved in the process of establishment of a Metropolitan Transport Authority, maybe since maybe 2016 or before. So he knows most things about the process of legislation and the discussion, all this kind of stuff. So he said that kind of thing. It's he want to establish the very strong Metropolitan Transport Authority in Korea right now. So he expressed that wish, very strongly. So. Again, I really appreciate your very precious talk in this seminar. Okay, we have finished the opening remark and also congratulatory remark, and let's have the commemorative photographs. Because photo session. So after photo session, we are going to, start. So thank you for your cooperation for taking photos, and we have two presentations for this seminar. It's first one is. Mr. Stefan PERKINS from the OECD-ITF. So please give a presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Mo, and thank all of you for coming here today to give me the opportunity to discuss this report that we just prepared for KOTI and for MOLIT, the Ministry of Transport and Land Infrastructure. And I must start with an apology. I brought 25 copies of the book with me to give to everybody here today. But during the week, we had 4 seminars, and the box of books disappeared. So apologies about that. But you can find the report on the internet, and you can download it and read it there. And I'll give you the address in just a moment. And it has quite a detailed review of the history of metropolitan transport authorities in 3 countries, mainly 3 countries in Paris, London, and Barcelona. And there's a lot of detail in the report which might be useful in establishing a metropolitan transport authority. And what I understand as of last week is a proposal now for a Metropolitan Transport Committee here in Seoul and in the capital region, and then later on in some other major city areas in Korea. So if you don't mind, I'll sit down and to work the presentation. Instead of the report, though, we distributed the executive summary of the report. So you have that in front of you. Plus, at the end, one of the PowerPoint slides, which will be too small for you to read. If you have good glasses, you can just about read it on this size, and it's included in the report. So you might want to refer to that, though. With the lights down, you'll have difficulty reading it there. So before going any further, I should start by saying the report itself was written by 3 of my colleagues, listed on the first page: Amy Aguilar, Joshua Patinino, and Tatiana Samsonova. 3 of my colleagues working in my team. And if you have detailed follow-up questions, I'm very happy to forward them to the direct authors for detailed explanation if you need it. But I was part of the team in producing the report, so I know it reasonably well. Maybe you can just put it to the next slide, please. Yeah, this doesn't seem to work. Oh, which one did you use? Ah, that one, okay. Of course, the one I didn't press. So just a few words about my institution before we start. The International Transport Forum is located at the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. It's an intergovernmental organization, and we have 59 member countries, and it's the ministries of transport, sometimes Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, that are the members of the organization. So we have 59 countries around the world, all of the OECD countries, plus the major economies, including China, Russia, and India. And we are therefore a global transport body, and our mandate covers all modes of transport, from aviation to metropolitan public transport systems. Part of our function is to operate as a think tank. We run research projects to report on issues of interest and importance to our organizing committees. We undertake some modeling. We publish statistics on the web on the performance of the transport sector in the member countries. And we undertake collaborative projects which involve the experts from the ministries around the membership and from the transport research institutes, including KOTI, who are a very strong partner. And the focal point of our year is an annual ministerial summit, and we organize this every year in Leipzig in the last week of May. It's a very large public event with about 1,200 people attending now. Usually we get a half to two-thirds of the ministers and vice ministers come to the summit, and we organize discussions around a series of panels that have the ministers talking with research experts or captains of industry and other civic stakeholders. And there's a whole variety of formats with a lot of the more technical research presented also in smaller meetings around during a period of 3 days in Leipzig. So if you're interested, keep an eye on our ITF website, and there'll be an invitation for registrations coming out quite shortly. So this is a picture of the report that you should have been given today, and that you can find on the web at this address. The easiest way to find it is simply to type into Google or another search engine, ITF Metropolitan, and you'll get the result. And in addition to this report, in the next couple of days, there'll be some discussion papers on the website which explore in a bit more detail, or the result of our consultations with Transport for London and Île-de-France Mobilité and the Barcelona authorities, presenting more information from their point of view. So the objective of the work was to support the development of a metropolitan transport authority principally for the Seoul capital region, including, of course, Seoul City, Incheon, and the surrounding Gyeonggi province. And you've had, for a number of years, proposals, and the most recently the proposal to create a metropolitan transport authority to improve on the success that you've already achieved with the Metropolitan Transport Association in coordinating public transport policies across the region, but also to extend the competence to more strategic planning. And the first thing I think to say about the public transport in the region and also in the other major cities in Korea is it is extremely impressive and very effective compared to most other countries in the ITF membership. So you have achieved a lot, and you've achieved a lot of integration of what was disparate operators in the system with a major bus reform a decade ago, which has delivered a lot of improved service. But there's still a potential to go a lot further and to step up to the next stage of integration. You really do need to create a body that has real authority to coordinate in a cooperative way between the constituent jurisdictions, strategic planning, and joint investment and coordination of services across the region. So the Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transport asked the ITF to assist in this process by analyzing how some other major cities around the world achieved the establishment of metropolitan transport authorities in their countries. And we undertook that work in collaboration with KOTI, who was our partner here to discuss the intermediate results of the work. And we chose to look at Paris, London, and Barcelona as mature metropolitan transport authorities that had been through a long process of getting to where they are today, steps that could be instructive for Korea in trying to get to where they are today, perhaps a bit faster than they managed to do it. So analyzing what are the core characteristics of what they've achieved and what kind of political compromises and negotiations were necessary to get there. So the MTA authorities in question are Transport for London in London, what is now called Île-de-France Mobilité in Paris. Up until a year ago it was called the STIF. And in Barcelona they have a double authority. They have ATN for the area all around Barcelona and AMB for the core of the city. And I'll explain a bit the context for why they have two as we go along. So the report is structured in these sections. We start with a description in quite some detail of the historical phases that each of these regions went through in establishing their transport authorities. In Paris, it's very much a story of progressive evolution from an authority that dealt only with the Paris core to a larger and wider area over time. In London, they haven't extended the responsibilities over such a wide area, but they've done it in conjunction with decentralization and establishment of a very powerful government organization regional government organization for the City of London itself. And in Barcelona, the two-institution arrangement is perhaps unique, but perhaps something that might be useful in Seoul. The second part of the report deals with the key characteristics of an MTA if you want it to be effective. And I'll deal with that, principally I'll deal with that in the following slides. And at the end, we look at three issues of particular importance for Seoul: improving the delivery of bus services, improving the way the transfer stations between buses and metro and rail work, and improving on the data collection and management systems. So this is a diagram that's impossible to read. But what the point of including it as a slide is just to emphasize that these are timelines, and they are very long timelines with a lot of twists and turns in getting to where we are today. And the starting points were rather different from what we have today. I can just give you some idea of what's written up in the report, and then you can read it later at your leisure. In Paris, I think the first date we have on here is 1948. But in fact, the coordination process goes back to about 1937, when the central government set up a committee to coordinate transport just inside the central core of Paris, so inside the inner ring road of today, in order to coordinate what were metro systems and bus systems which were initially privately funded and privately established. And at that time, the Ministry of Infrastructure at the time established a committee to coordinate service delivery between the different organizations. And maybe in some ways that's the point at which you are today in setting up the proposal now to set up a committee with rather limited powers rather than going to the authority, which was what was originally the president's intention in his electoral campaign. What happened next in Paris? Well, the context, of course, was just after the Depression in Europe, the big depression of the 1920s and 1930s. And next door in the UK, in London, that resulted in the bankruptcy of many of the metro systems, which were also privately established. They also were competing with each other for passengers. They were established to develop new suburbs around London and bring commuters into the center of the city for work and for shopping. The coordination problems were becoming apparent at the central stations. There was difficulty in managing the numbers of passengers that were being brought in. But because of the bankruptcy, the government stepped in and created a corporation which was owned through bonds by the private operators, but essentially a state-operated corporation to run all of the metro and most of the bus services. And because of its history, it didn't receive subsidy. It was it was established from the private companies. And that kind of still determines to today the difference between France and the UK, where the London transport system runs with most of its revenues covered by the fare box income from the services, particularly on the metro system, to a lesser extent on the bus system, where some of the bus routes are subsidized, but a much higher fare recovery level than in Paris, where there's been a long history of the government buying services through subsidy. History in Barcelona starts much later, in the 70s, so we'll come on to that a bit later. I think the other things to say about the evolution in France, what has happened over the years is by steps they've found that there's not sufficient coordination and particularly not sufficient authority to make decisions. And bit by bit, they've transferred the powers for decision-making and independent budgets to the Metropolitan Transport Authority. And this is where it would be really helpful to be able to read this slide, because in the 1960s, the power was transferred from a committee inside the government, inside the Ministry of Transport, to an independent organization, the SDP, which initially didn't have its own budget, but in a second stage of reform was given its own dedicated budget. And once it was given a dedicated budget, then it had decision-making power. Later on, culminating in decisions taken in 2014, which resulted in the transformation of the name from the STIF to Île-de-France Mobilité. They resolved issues that had arisen between who exactly had power over the budget and the decision-making process. as successive additional coordinating powers were provided to the authority under a series of laws issued by the national government, what happened was powers were taken away from the lower level of government, the municipalities, which were in charge of the bus services initially, and passed up to Paris as a whole, to the city of Paris, and then eventually to the region. And at each successive phase, there were people who had had their budgets taken away from them and given to the Metropolitan Transport Authority, of course, felt that they'd had a loss of power and a loss of responsibility, which created political tensions, which were each time resolved by giving the decision-making, giving them a seat on the council that makes the decisions in the STIF and now today Île-de-France Mobilité. So there was progressively a transfer of the voting rights inside the council of the Metropolitan Transport Authority to match the powers that were taken away from the lower levels of government. And in the final phase in 2014, the central government finally gave up its chairing role and passed it to the regional government. And so it then had to have a seat which was kind of equal with the other members of the other government representatives on the decision-making body, the Metropolitan Transport Authority. And that tension over matching the decision-making powers to where the budget comes from has been obviously a driving force in the evolution of all of the MTAs. In London, the history was rather less smooth and progressive. In France, there was always tensions that were then resolved, and we went to the next step of integration at a larger and larger geographical area. What happened in London was a long-term concern by the central government, by the Ministry of Transport and by the Ministry of Finance, that if you gave power to London, then you risked them exploding the budget and spending too much money on public transport. And so there was a series of initiatives to give more authority to the corporation that was responsible for the transport services. This corporation that was set up way back in 1933 and changed its name several times. And there would be phases of giving it more responsibility and then taking the responsibility away again back into the Ministry of Transport. The most extreme case of that was under Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s, where the Council for Greater London was abolished and the responsibility for running the transport system went back to the lowest level of government, the districts, very small parts of the city, for the roads and the bus services, and to the national government for the metro services combined with the rail services. That was fairly unstable because the national rail system had a big debt, and when the left-wing government of Tony Blair came in a decade later, one of their main proposals was to re-establish the government of London as part of a decentralization process. And that process went to referendum, and in London it was taken as the first case to create an independent mayor responsible for the city, and it was put to referendum with a vote of about 75% of the population supporting that change in government. And at that point, with re-establishment of an actual parliament for London, Transport for London was created, and all of the powers for operating the public transport system were transferred to this single authority, Transport for London. Now, even then, it wasn't a stable situation because later on the Labour government experimented with public-private partnerships and divided the metro system into two and awarded contracts to two banking consortiums and engineering and banking consortiums to run what was necessary at the time, a major refurbishment of many of the lines. Unfortunately, both of those PPPs collapsed for the most basic of reasons of failure to coordinate between the engineering companies that were involved in them, which was somewhat surprising because a PPP that's what it's supposed to do really well. And so both were taken back into the hands of Transport for London, and today it's again responsible for operating, planning, investment, and management of the system. And then the story in Barcelona started much later, and the reason we have two separate authorities was one of historical politics. The city of Barcelona had its own coordinating mechanism for public transport services, and the government, the central government in Madrid, established regions through the country and established a government for the region around Barcelona, the region of Catalonia. And initially that was a move by the central government in Madrid to control what happened politically in Barcelona, which was always been a very independent part of the country. It's the Busan of Spain, but to a much greater degree, has been seen in the last year and a half of the political problems in Barcelona. So that was the origin of having two authorities, but then in the 1970s, there was a lot of cooperation. There was a very positive climate of integrating the city and the region, and they worked out a split in responsibilities between the two authorities to coordinate public transport across the region. An advantage that they have is that the central area in the middle of Barcelona, the authority can concentrate on the delivery of a seamless last mile transport experience, so concentrating on the buses, but integrating them with cycling, walking, and the environment, the pedestrian environment, whereas the regional authority is more focused on the longer distance commuting services, both on the buses and on rail. Now, the central government, the Ministry of Transport, was critical in making the two bodies cooperate in the way they do today, because they created a financial incentive to ensure that Barcelona cooperated with the region. It offered money for investment, which Barcelona would only be eligible for if they integrated into the regional transport authority. So the Ministry of Transport has always a very key role in getting the system to work at the beginning and providing the incentives for the different actors to work together. So that's enough of the complicated diagram. Read the first part of the report to get this in detail. How many minutes? I can't read that. 10 minutes, no, that's fine. The other slides will be much quicker. So what distinguishes all of these as effective metropolitan transport authorities? First of all, they all have formal authority given through legislation issued by the national government, with the legal authority over a specified territory and clearly defined responsibilities in the law. That's fairly obvious, but with this complicated evolution, it wasn't necessarily always easy to ensure that kind of clarity. What's most important now is they have dedicated funding and they have authority over the use of their budgets, and that's particularly the case of Paris and London. They have a dedicated and highly skilled staff, and their budget, of course, pays for that. And they have the planning capacity through the expertise of the staff and the legal authority, including at the strategic level of planning coordinated investment in infrastructure across the region, so that you don't get a situation of one part of the region designing roads that don't then match up with another part of the region. And similarly, the metro system is designed to meet demand along corridors that make sense for the region as a whole and not just for individual politicians in different parts of the region. And that's always a battle. Each local government person is trying to fight for his own area and his own voters, And in Paris now, they've managed to achieve a very successful resolution to what has been their main complicating factor for many years. And the other key factor is you have a predominant role of the subnational level in the decision-making process. Paris has been the ultimate expression of how that's evolved, from the power really being in the lowest level of government, then jumping to the state, then passing down to the region as part of the decentralization process. And now as the region's been given increasing, as the MTA has been given increasing budget, they've brought back in the lowest level of government into equal representation on the decision-making body of the MTA. And I know you've been through decentralization in Korea, and this is a trend right across the OECD, because obviously decision-making closer to the local population gives the elected authorities better understanding of the local needs and more responsiveness to their demands. Also more responsibility for using budgets sensibly to meet that demand. The downside is you create fragmentation and in the competence for transport across actors from different territories. In all three case studies, the MTAs have proven a very effective way to reconcile those two opposing trends. And they've, as long as you get the decision-making responsibilities properly matched, it works very well as a way to make the best of decentralization. So a lot of promise here for implementing it in Korea. So the national government role is important, as I said, in terms of political support, in terms of financial capacity, incentivizing the creation of an MTA as they did in Barcelona, also ensuring its financial sustainability. In Paris, one of the key things that the central government did was create a specific fund for public transport subsidy, and it did that by introducing a tax on businesses above a certain size in the whole of the Paris region. Was a tax known as the versement transport, and that finances about a third of the costs of operating the system and making the routine investments and reinvestments in the metro and the bus system. Similarly in the UK, even though the public funding of the system is much lower, there was a change in the national law when the Greater London Authority was created and Transport for London was created to allow Transport for London to experiment with new ways of raising money, which it is now doing through the planning system, where they've introduced, for example, a system, if you're a property developer and you want to build a building which would create a transport demand that the existing system cannot meet, you can offer to pay to partially fund expansion or completely fund the addition of a metro station or the introduction of a new bus service, which will convert the planning zone regulations to allow you to build this bigger building. And that required a change in the national law to give the authority to the local Metropolitan Transport Authority to be able to raise its own money. So that kind of passing power for revenue raising to lower levels of government, obviously only the central government can do that. And it can play, obviously, it's the only party that can really play a central role in brokering agreements between the different existing authorities in the region. And again, making that funding available in Barcelona was vital to ensuring that the region and the city broke the deadlock and cooperated with each other. So this is a little bit obvious. You have to use periods where there's a degree of political consensus to get these changes introduced. You had that with the election of the current president here. In the UK, it's what made the difference in being able to establish Transport for London. There was a degree of cooperation between the UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and the Mayor of London, or at the time the future Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone. Now, they were both in the Labour Party at first, but Ken Livingstone was expelled for being too radical. So even though they started off as both in the Socialist Party, they were actually enemies and alternative candidates for leadership of the party. So it was quite a tricky situation, but nevertheless, they agreed, at least on transport, they would cooperate. And things are not always smooth. I mean, since the establishment of the Versement de Transport in Paris, Sarkozy, the right-wing president of Paris, the last but one president, actually proposed abolishing it to make Paris more competitive for business, but it would have created major problems for the transport system, and it didn't come to pass. He was out of office before it could be done. You'll never take anything for granted. What you need in the end to get these kind of changes made in what are always difficult political circumstances is to foster public awareness of the problems of failures to coordinate. Problems like congestion, poor service, bus routes that don't make sense. And in all these cases, that has been a big part of the story. In London, Ken Livingstone campaigned to get elected mayor with a promise to introduce congestion charging, as well as operate the Transport for London. He got re-elected as a result. In France, in 2014, a campaign of dissatisfied commuters was the key factor in getting the Senate in France to force the government to make a financial settlement that facilitated this transfer of power within Île-de-France Mobilité that makes it work today and gave the local authorities, the lowest level of government, compensation for losing their independence. This is what geographically the three institutions look like. Each of the regions is to scale. The bar at the bottom is 40 kilometers. The green ring is the functional urban area, which is effectively the commuting zone. And the red area in the middle is the urban core. In case of Paris, it's what's known as Greater Paris, so bigger than the inner ring road. In London, it's called Greater London. And then the authority is delegated rather differently in each of the three cases. In Paris, the authority is the region, which is the blue ring, which is very close to the functional urban area. So for them, it matches extremely well for managing the strategic transport decision-making for the region. In London, it's much smaller, and their biggest headache over the years has been surface rail commuting services, which are actually run by national rail companies, which have been privatized. And coordinating that has taken many years longer than coordinating the metro and bus services. But Transport for London increasingly has power by providing some finance for developing stations, for example. And most recently, the two red lines on that slide cutting across London is Crossrail, a big new underground rail investment which is adding 10% capacity to the metro system in London. And it's actually Transport for London that is running those trains, and with a financing arrangement where the government did something like in France and raised a local business tax to raise about 20% of the funding to make the investment possible. So you can see Transport for London extending its reach out into the functional transport area. And in Barcelona, the larger authority, the regional authority, it corresponds rather well with the functional commuting area, and the inner authority corresponds well with the built-up, the most intensively built-up part of the area. I think this is the final substantive slide. It shows you the scope of the powers of each of the authorities. With London at the top, It has powers, complete powers over strategic planning, over public transport planning, over infrastructure and services for public transport, over fares, over the issuing of concessions, at least for the buses, over investment, over traffic management, over demand management through the congestion charge, and through the congestion charge, over road safety, and over policies, some of the policies towards cycling and walking. So it has a very complete range of powers and responsibilities, and so it's clearly going to be the most effective of the authorities. In Paris, they have a very wide range of powers. Traffic management, traffic demand management has so far been a mixed response. They've had little responsibility there, with the national government being responsible for that. But there's a proposed law that's just been passed, or just been put to Parliament, to give authority to the MTA to introduce congestion charging if the government feels, the local government feels that that's what it wants to do. So its powers have progressively been extended. And in Barcelona, between the two authorities, they cover the whole set of powers. And then just looking at their budgets and their manpower, in Paris, they have an annual budget of 8 billion euros, and they have 300 staff, excluding those that are in the operating companies run by RATP, SNCF, Transdev, and so on. In the UK, the budget is similar. It's 10 billion. They have 27,000 staff because they directly operate the buses and the metro system. In Barcelona, the budgets, it's a smaller region, the budgets are smaller, 1.3 and 2.7 billion, and the staff particularly is much smaller, with just 39 and 40 staff in each of them. But this is because the budgets flow through the lowest level of government, and so they have the responsibility for the staffing and the expenditures, and the coordination is done by the two authorities. So they're still at a kind of intermediate stage, and perhaps they'll evolve to taking over more of the budget and more of the staff. So that's it, hopefully still on time, and that's a link.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, next is my turn to speak. Okay. Okay, as you know, my name is Chang-Han Mo, and I'm going to give a presentation on the operation issues of Metropolitan Transport Authority. It's time to think about the operation of MTA. So how are we going to operate this organization later? So I will just review the operation issues and the problem may happen in the future. And I'm going to give the according to this order, problems of Korean metropolitan transport organizations. Second is the creation of a new metropolitan transport authority. And third is operation issue of metropolitan transport authority in US and Europe and the policy implication. So, I'm going to give some present, status of the MTA's legislations and policy making at this moment. And first, as you know, is in the Korea's capital region, there is a lot of the conflict of metropolitan transport. Issue like that. Metropolitan bus, BRT, road, railway, transport, and the fare also. There's this kind of thing, so there are many conflicts happening right now. So, this Incheon and Seoul and Gyeonggi provinces, they have a different administrative boundary they have. So, like Seoul is pay attention to the transportation inside their administrative boundary, and they provide very good service inside of their territory. But when those people who live in Gyeonggi to Seoul, and Seoul to Gyeonggi, or Incheon to Gyeonggi, or Incheon to Seoul, in the case, those metropolitan transportation, in the case, there is a problem, because Seoul government is only pay attention to Seoul transportation. And Gyeonggi, not Gyeonggi, but Incheon. Incheon city only focus on the Incheon transportation, They deal with those demand. That's the reason. There's like a lack of transportation service between those two or two or three, across the traffic demand is not addressed very well. So that is the problem right now. That is a Korean case. It's so as you can see in this photo, there is this kind of congestion is happening right now, because inside the Seoul, inside the Incheon is no problem, but like across the boundary of the local government, there is this kind of the problems happening. It's a really serious. It's very serious one. So I say that like a vacuum of metropolitan transport administration is happening right now. Vacuum. There's no no authority to deal with this vacuum, this emptiness of administration. It's happening. It's a structural problem, not just just one mistake or something like that. It is a real structural administrative problem. Okay, that is the problem, and only those government, Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi province only take care of their own inside their territory, not outside. They don't want to pay money for those people who go outside. That is the problem. It's happening. That's the main issue of the metropolitan transportation in Korea right now. That is a very serious one. For example, it's like the congestion rate of metropolitan railway. It's most of this railway, metropolitan railway, is over 100%. Most of them. It's just to show the seriousness of metropolitan transportation right now in Korea. In particular in the capital region. It's very serious, and so many citizens are suffering right now. Not only the the railway user, but also the like bus users. They also are very suffering because they have to use you every day. Not only once a month, they have to use you every day. So that is the big problem. That's the reason these three government, Incheon, Seoul, Gyeonggi government is created. The CRTA, Capital Region Transport Association. They created in 2005. They know all those this kind of problem. It's like a metropolitan problem. They know. So that's the reason they wanna solve, and they organize this kind of the Metropolitan Transport Organization, CRTA, in 2005, and they trying to solve metropolitan transport problems in the capital region. The structure of the Capital Transport Association is like the council, president, like that. There's two departments. This organization still exists, still operating right now. Still operating, but there's many people say that it's a problem because the CRTA is organized with civil servants temporarily sent from those three government and proportionally funding from the three regional government, and they have a veto power, kind of the veto power. If one like a Seoul or city government don't like the like a policy, metropolitan policy, they say, okay, you don't like that. In the case that policy cannot implement. Why? Because they provide money, and if CRT is trying to implement that policy, the Seoul government, okay, we are not going to pay. So there is no punishment at all. They cannot punish. And also Gyeonggi or Incheon same. Incheon city government say, okay, we don't like this policy and we don't want to pay. In the case of who is going to punish that city? And they said, oh, we are going to out of this association. They can say like that. And there is also lack of legal power also. They don't, because this city government has many power, in terms of transportation, like a bus and the subway or many, they have legal power, but they don't transfer those power to CRTA. So this problem is caused, after 14 years later, there's still the problems happening. This is the Sadang station. These people are waiting metropolitan buses. They are waiting there. It's 10 years ago, same. After 10 years later, the same thing happening. And the people in the capital region, they cannot solve this problem. It's a symbolic photo, Not only Metro bus, it's also BRT, road, metropolitan road, railway, transport facility, fares, bus information system also. This kind of things are not integrated. It's because there is a conflict among the government. It's very serious. So in short, if I can summarize this problem, it's like there are four problems, like the lack of legal power, lack of funding, lack of loyalty of human resources. Those people who are working there, they temporarily come from those government. They have to come back to their local government. So they don't want to, bad thing, damaging policy. They want to implement a damaging policy to like a Seoul city government or the Gyeonggi province or the Incheon city government. like okay, there's one policy. It's going to be good for Gyeonggi and Incheon, but it's bad for Seoul. In the case of those people who come from Seoul city government, they don't want to implement that kind of policy. They say, no, we don't want to implement that kind of policy. That is the problem. So this comes to lack of loyalty to this CRTA, also lack of expertise, because they have to, those people who come from the three government, they have to come back and it's replaced to other people, so they don't have a specialty in metropolitan transportation. So this kind of thing is happening. So that's the reason we think we need a strong and independent metropolitan transportation authority. So that is the starting point. So we need to create the new metropolitan MTA in Korea. So the direction of metropolitan governance is right now we are like present. Present is like this CRTA from here like that, and future. Future is MTA. This the yellow color. So we are going to change from the CRTA to MTA. That is our direction. So we're trying to, before it was just the association, but right now we're trying to the authority. And these CRTA organized by the local government. Those three local government is organized that. And they failed after 14 years. That's the reason we're trying to use, this central government. Central government is going to organize this MTA. Because those three local government, have been tried for 14 years, but they failed. So it's time to give some opportunity to central government. So that is the the future authority is going to be organized by central government. It's going to have like a legal power, independent funding, independent authority for human resources. Yeah, this is the funding and the independent authority for human resources is very important. Also legal power. That is the key factor to be successful. It's very important. Goals of MTA is the system efficiency and citizen satisfaction. It's the MTA is going to increase connectivity of transport mode and the system across the administrative boundary of local government, and to break down the fixed administrative walls of a local government for providing seamless transportation service. Seamless transportation service. That is the goal of the MTA, which we are trying to organize right now. We're trying to provide a seamless transport service. That is very important. And also, we are trying to make efficient and integrated development of the whole region as one administrative unit for transport and logistics. Because it's not separated, so we're trying to give some integrated service for citizens, for their welfare, for their benefit. And the function of MTA is like a planning and investment coordination. I'm not going to explain in detail. It's just and the fossil construction and the maintenance and the management and operation. And also, I suggest this MTA should do this kind of smart mobility integration as a function of MTA. It's in the future, the MTA should do this kind of the smart mobility integration. Like a seamless connected transport service and the service across the administrative boundary, and all this kind of the integration, mobility integration service, and the MTA can take a leading role as smart mobility integration. It's right now many transport experts are talking about discussing the smart mobility integration right now. So this MTA can be one leading leading organization to the smart mobility integration in the future. Okay. Okay, 10 minutes. And also this operation and creation of MTA, and it needs the kind of the council. So there is local government can participate in there. Local government should have some like a space to participate in. So as I told you before, so this organization is going to organized by the central government at this moment. So this one is going to have some space for local government, and the local government can join this council as a member of the council. So, for example, it's other MTA in USA and Europe. They all have like a council and a board, and they have like those board has a decision-making power, and also the executive below the council usually faithfully follow and implement the policy which has been decided by the council. So executive body is just like follow the command of the council. That is usually the pattern of the MTA in the world. And the organization of structure of MTA is like the council, president, and there's three departments: Department of General Affairs, Department of Operation, and the Department of Facility. So these three departments is going to do all this metropolitan transportation issues. They're going to deal with that kind of thing. It's operation, facility, and this kind of thing. And also, we are going to have this kind of the regional metropolitan transport council, because it's not, this organization is not only for capital region organization, but also there are 4 other metropolitan area. It's like Busan, Daegu, Gwangju, and Daejeon. So each of these the metropolitan area, they are going to have one of this kind of the regional metropolitan transport councils. Okay, next is the operating issue of MTA in US and Europe. So we are trying to review this foreign cases. First is Washington WMATA. It's, this organization is provide train service in Washington metropolitan area, and there is 3 states: Columbia, DC, Virginia, and Maryland. They organize this together, and there is 8 board members, and 2 each from 2 states, and the DC federal government. Federal government is also involved here. And they provide, there is the 2 members from federal government also join this board. So there is no one dominant, power over other participants here. That is very special. As the Steve point out, explained, like European cases. In many cases, it's most of the like UK, the mayor has a very strong power. He has dominant power in board. Also, like the Ile-de-France mobilities, there's also, before, the central government has a strong power. And right now, it's the region Ile-de-France has power instead of the central government. It's like that. So they have a veto power. Also, they determine agency policy and provide oversight for the funding, operation, and expansion of transit facility. And they operate metro rail and bus and access. It's for transport weaker, like a disabled person. They provide service like that. Okay, WMATA is have this kind of like a benefit for the national capital region, like economic growth and improve quality of life, this kind of thing, environmental sustainability, this kind of thing. They also doing a very impressive result that they produce, but they still has some problem. Is these four actors involved in this WMATA operation, and there's some a lot of the conflict in here. For example, like this, there are budget dispute among those four actors here: federal government and two states and District Columbia. These four actors are fighting, continuously fighting. So that's the reason. This kind of the report of newspaper, like a death spiral of transit system in Washington area, it is openly reported in the newspaper until now, continuously. These people say this is going to collapse. This system is going to collapse because too much debt like that. They need a lot of money. So this is kind of problem. When we, establish the MTA, the problems after that, if it has too much burden, it cannot be sustained. Also, like the WMATA has this kind of the operating deficit outlook. It's it's really right now like that, but future is going to the operating deficit is going to be very wide. It will be really going to be big problem for the WMATA's success in the future. And also there's another the Metropolitan Transport Organization is a TPB, Transport Planning Board. It's a kind of MPO. I think most of you know about MPO, so I'm not going to explain in detail. But I'd like to explain that. It's 80% budget from federal and 20% from state and local government. It's 80% of money come from federal government. That is a lot of money. And also transit plan is done with WMATA together. WMATA and TPB together. It's also there is a federal requirement for MPOs. There is like a MPO should do some like a function. It's a function like the 3C process. They have to carry out that. And also lead the regional transport planning process, all those things. Also, they like make this kind of financially constrained long-range transport plan. It's TPB is create this kind of the long-range plan and also transportation improvement program (TIP). Also, TPP provide the regional transportation policy framework, and the TPP also provide technical resources. For example, traffic demand forecasting, that kind of thing, is done by TPP. There are many, transport experts. They, provide the forecast. Also, they analyze the impact of transport project, something like that. Third is France-Paris Ile-de-France mobilities, and already Steve is explained that, so I'm going to explain in short. This Ile-de-France mobilities is first created by the central government in 1959. Central government, and the names changed from STP, STIP, and Ile-de-France mobility. Ile-de-France mobilities is recently changed from the name, is from STIP. And the transfer of board leadership is in 2006. Before it was, central government is lead that board, but right now it's region government is lead that board right now, because the region government, which covered the whole area of Ile-de-France, created in 1982. So before it does not have the kind of the government who covered the whole area of Ile-de-France area. So that's the reason the central government involved in there, and they provide the metropolitan transport service. And the board is 29, and the Ile-de-France region have a majority, like that. Region of Ile-de-France 14, and the chair is president of Ile-de-France region. So they have a majority in here. They have like a decision-making power over here. So this is the board meeting, and there's the decision-making rule is the majority, simple majority voting, but there's a second deliberation process in there. If some like a member doesn't like the result, is in the case they ask one more process, second deliberation. And the structure of Ile-de-France will be like that, board and executive body. And the service is provided by contracting out. They do not directly provide service. And the fourth is France-Lyon's the board meeting, CITRA. CITRA also, they have like this kind of board, and they provide train service. And this one showed that the decision-making rule of the board is most critical to make MTAs effective. Finally, so you can London TFL. TFL is also like that. As Steve explained that, London city, after that it was expanded to Greater London Authority. It's just not, London city is a very small area, and it's expanded to the whole region of Greater London area, and they created GLA by referendum, by Blair. The Prime Minister Blair is created this kind of the regional government, GLA, in 1998. And TFL, Transport London, is created under the GLA at the time, together. Before it was, when TFL wasn't existed, the metropolitan transport problem have been very serious in London area. So that's the reason they trying to solve this problem. They created a TFL. But if they didn't have a GLA, Greater London Authority, GLA, new regional government, if they didn't have that kind of the regional government, they couldn't create TFL. And this, as you can see over here, all of them, these board members are selected by the mayor. Mayor has very strong power. He can do anything over here. So chair is the mayor of the GLA. Because he is elected by, directly elected. That's the reason he has a strong power. And TFL board meeting is like
this. Just I'd like to show that. And finally, I'm going to give a very explain the first implication. Okay, so we saw that those cases. I want to ask this question: can Korea create the capital region government as Paris and London? For example, Paris, the Ile-de-France mobility, Ile-de-France regional government, and in London. London is, created Greater London, GRA, or new regional government. After that kind of thing is they can have the Metropolitan, MTA, under that kind of government. But Seoul is, this Seoul, the capital region, is help for population and wealth. It's too much. Like London and Paris, it stays only about 20% of population or wealth is concentrated in that region. But in here, Seoul is 50% of population and wealth in here. So if we create this kind of the capital region government, it's going to be another national government, That's the reason. This is not politically acceptable. That's the reason. That's the reason we cannot create this kind of sub-national the authority here. We cannot in capital region. That is a little bit different. And here is also we are going to establish a dual model of MTA, not just like in other MTA, they deal with all transportation, not only metropolitan but also urban transportation. They deal with all. Like a city of Washington, they don't have so much power to in transportation. Like a city of New York, they don't have so much power in transportation. The city of Paris, city of England, the London, they don't have so much power. The MTA have power. So, but we are trying to urban transportation is going to be same as it is right now. Those function is going to be stay there. And this only metropolitan transport service is going to be provided by MTA. That is our plan. It's a whole different from the other case in Europe and in the United States. So we are like the only central government is involved here and provide like this. But only metropolitan transport service means those service from one local government to another local government. Only we will deal with and provide service for that. That is our goal right now. It's different. And Korea is a very decentralized transport system in bus, transport center, road, all this kind of thing. Most of the power, legislation, license is the transport to the local government right now, most of them. So it's the operation issue is like a planning and the council operation and the funding. It's I'd like to point out the council operation is very important, and that council operation should have like a mechanism of conflict resolution. That's very important. I'm trying to emphasize that, and also I'd like to emphasize this funding issue also. Without funding, so this council, this MTA cannot function very well. For example, flexible funding scheme based on the necessity of maritime transport is very important. Right now, so all mode is based on is invested based on the fixed rule, like 30% of subsidy from central government is all transport facility, 50%. But BRT is 40% in the capital region, like that. So there is no difference in there. But if we like, we can change this funding ratio based on the specific facility, we can use this funding mechanism to persuade the local government, so they can, follow the decision making of the council. And there's many, the participant and the actor. So it's the mechanism of decision making is very important. And also, I think so we need the strength and the metropolitan planning. Planning is very important, I think. It's like a TPP in US. And finally, so if MTA is going to fill the vacuum of MTA, Metropolitan Transport Administration, it will be improve the welfare of the citizen in the capital region and in metropolitan areas. That's the reason I hope that we have MTA very soon, strong MTA very soon. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. We are going to have a 10 minutes break. Yeah.
Please understand my English level. I think first of all, I like to thank the two presenters, Steve and Changwan, for their very useful presentations. For example, the Steve presentation is very organized. It's very trying to deliver very clear message for the future, for the role and the functions of the MTA. In the other hand, the Dr. Mo's, Dr. Changwan, Dr. Mo's presentation is very fascinating, very fascinating, but slightly, I'm sorry to say this, slightly confusing over what is the ultimate goal, ultimate benefit of the MTA, which is currently on the process in Korea. Okay, so I think it's I try to before the introducing all of the discussants. Let's first introduce the discussant from Sigon Kim. Self-introduction, please. Okay. Yeah. That's better. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Sigon Kim, working at Seoul Tech. We call Seoul Tech, Seoul National University of Science and Technology, and I'm specialized in railway. Yeah. And I'm also very interested in these MTA issues. So I have kind of comments and the questions I'll do soon.
Okay, Professor Shin.
My name is Yong Shin. I'm working for Donghee University. I'm from the other area of not capital region. So
okay, you are representing
yes.
the Busan region,
yes,
all right? Yeah.
Busan, Ulsan, and Gyeongnam.
Gyeongnam, okay.
You missed Gyeongnam, so I think they are gonna angry about me.
Okay.
So
Okay.
So my major is public transportation, main interest. So it's related to this. Most of MTA is only focused on transit system.
Okay.
So I'm really impressed by your two presentations. I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Professor Park.
Hello, my name is Eunmi Park from Mogon University. Frankly, I'm not very big at administrative issues in transportation area, but I'm just be here to explaining about the Daejeon area problem.
Oh, Daejeon area. You are representing Daejeon region. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Ji.
Okay, I'm representing Gyeonggi-do, and my name is Usok. Maybe the Gyeonggi province is most eager to have MTA, I guess. the MTA represents Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi, but I think Seoul is not much passionate to have MTA because they don't have much population to go out of Seoul, while many commuters from Gyeonggi area go to Seoul. So I'm very much interested in have a very effective MTA in our metropolitan area. Thank you.
So you are fully supporting the establishment of MTA. Strong MTA.
Very much so. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sungwan Kim. I'm in charge of metropolitan traffic policy in Gyeonggi provincial government. From the beginning, I have been taking part in establishing MTA in Korea with central government, Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transit. I'm very honored to discuss with you with this important topic with you.
Thank you.
Above all things, I was deeply impressed by the speaker's profound insight concerning the topic. Thanks for wonderful presentation, Dr. PERKINS and Dr. Mo. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you again.
Okay, thank you. And Binyam?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Binyam Reja. I'm from the World Bank, the practice manager for transport, covering China, Central Asia, and I guess to some extent Korea is also part of it, although we don't have any lending operation. So I'm based in Beijing, so I'm very happy to be here in Korea. I was hoping to get more fresh air, but Seoul isn't really, the pollution followed me. So I need to go a little bit further away, I guess.
You are guilty.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. But other than that, I'm very happy to be in Seoul and discussing on this important topic with you all. Thank you.
I think Mr. Reza is now he's the practice manager at the World Bank. He's in charge of the transport practice, global practice transport in Beijing and Central Asia, also Korea. So he's very related to Korea. In the future, about Korea. I hope so.
Good afternoon. My name is Young Jong-kwon. I am a senior research fellow in KOTI. Actually, I entered KOTI about in 1997. At that time, actually, metropolitan transport problem was a big issue in Korea. Now, actually, at that time, I implemented several research for the solving the transport metropolitan transport problems. Thank you.
From the mid of January next year, he's going for the second month, as a secondary to ADB. So if you have any business with ADB, please use him. All right? Yeah. Okay.
Hello, my name is Sungil Shin, working at Seoul, the Seoul Institute. My specific area is like ITS thing or the transportation modeling. Actually, I don't know well about MTA thing or capital region authority something like this. But recently, I have been experienced about the revenue allocation problem. Actually, this, in my idea, this problem might be related to exactly, I'm not exactly, maybe related to this capitalism transport authority. So I would like to have common experience about this with you person. So I was very passionate by two of your presentation, and thank you.
I think the Seoul City government is still very much lingering. I mean, looking at not fully agreement with the MTA, as far as I understand. So the Dr. Shin is also representing such attitude, such situation, perhaps. Okay, later, let's see his discussions. All right. Okay, Dr. Lee.
Good afternoon. Sorry, ma'am. I'm Yong-Taek Lee, working in BAI, which is Supreme Audit Institution in Korea. I'm working in the divisions of local and provincial governments. Thank you for welcoming us. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Hwa-Sung-yang. First of all, thank you for Mr. Stephen Perkins. I remember that 1 year ago, I and my staff asked you about this report. At the time, we convinced that we don't use this paper because at the time we think that our lawmaking is done rapidly, but I know at this time we are delayed a lot, and
okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime. Anyway, your report is very helpful to pursue our council members and also other ministries. Thank you. Thank you again.
Okay.
I'm sorry that our Director General couldn't come here because of his schedule, and I'm very worried about this discussion in English because
this is okay. You're doing
it's
well.
my first time discussing in English.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Okay.
I'm just the audience.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm Chung Yol-lee, or known as Peter from KOTI, and I'm very happy to be here as one of very few audiences. And without any pressure, I'm pretty ready to enjoy your fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your self-introduction. And then I will start with, I think our discussion may start with some questions from me. And then you may discuss about the questions, items of my questions or not. But I think it's actually, frankly speaking, I have thought many things from the two presenters, two presentations, and also the MP, Member of Parliament, Jang Byung-guk. He raised actually two issues. One is how to reconcile, how to resolve, how to go with the conflict of the decentralization between the MTA establishment and the decentralization issue trend, as you mentioned. That is one thing. So he said, I think it's the MTA is not opposing the decentralization trend, he said, but many people, especially some large municipals, they think still the MTA is something like against the interest of or trend of the decentralization. That is one thing. Another the issue raised from the Jang Byung-guk is about the power of the new MTA, MTC. C is the committee. So he's worrying about the lacking the strong power of the budget and also staff capacity. Okay, so he's worrying about that. But I'm not quite sure. Actually, the new law, the new legalization is actually lacking the budget power and also the staff, the capacity, as well, personnel management capacity as well. So that two are the issues raised from the MP Jang Byung-guk, and I wanted to make 1 or 2 or 3 points. First of all, I think it is very important to understand what MTA can solve for the metropolitan transit programs, or what MTA cannot solve. It should be very clearly defined about the scope of the roles or functions of MTA. I think it's according to Dr. Mo's presentation, everything is because of the lack of the non-existence of the MTA. He said it sounds to me not actually. I hope it does not look like that, but it looks like that. With the MTA established, and then we can solve all the problems of metropolitan transport programs in Korea, something like that. That is a very dangerous approach. That is one thing. The other thing is in relation to that, we have to think about in detail about what benefits of MTA, what benefits the MTA can produce, can generate. It's not very clear. Okay. That to MTA, what benefits of MTA to address at this stage, and then as I said, it's the decentralization program conflict with the local government, and another one is perhaps the Professor Kim might address is the integration benefit, vice versa, the competition or fragmentation benefit, something like this. Yeah? I'm sorry to say the fragmentation, but something like the competition. Okay, so competition is more or less some kind of the phenomenon of the state of the fragmentation. So another issue is the more clearly the role and the function of MTA, future MTA, to be established in Korea, and another one is the budget power, and the personnel capacity given to MTA in Korea, something like this. So that is all. Another matter is actually the MTA can guarantee whether MTA. My question is this: whether MTA can improve the efficiency of the transport systems, transport systems of the operation efficiency of the transport systems, or actually MTA can contribute to enhance the service level of the travelers. Actually, it's not clear to me as well. Okay, so that is some basic questions to be discussed from my point of view. So you may talk about one of that or one of those or not. It's up to you. Okay, shall we start with the, I was asked the Dr. Mo, the Professor Shin Young-gyun is going to leave early, so I want to give the first the chance to make discussion. Professor Shin, is it true? Yeah. Yes, yes. Okay, please do.
Do I have to answer? Do I have to answer? Okay. I know. I'm sure that the one thing I really talk about is I'm really disappointed with it becomes commission instead of authority. Okay, so that's my first. I mean. Commission, yes. By comment, I didn't know that the government tried to establish commission instead of the authority. I hope that I really hope that the last question that Dr. Mo gives here. Can Korea create the Bulgyang region government? Okay, that's my question. As a chapter vision did try to do. Also, I have a question too. Is the government, central government, has any intention to eventually building a MTA? Okay? Instead of a commission. Dr. O gives questions whether you're not clear about the benefits of MTA, right? So I can say from my experience, actually I studied in Philadelphia area, which is one of the great metropolitan area in USA. And then we have MPO, and as well as SEPTA, which controlled all the public transportation system, entire Philadelphia region. It includes part of New Jersey, okay, and then most of Philadelphia suburban area too. So the benefit is clear. From my experience, it is possible to provide high quality, okay, seamless transit service and the network. Okay? That's for the people, for the citizens. Okay? So we shouldn't actually take into account the efficiencies and all the monetary values for this problem. Okay? We need to provide high quality transportation, transit service especially. Transit service. We have in Bulgyang area we have a problem, such problem. We don't have a continuous public transportation service in the entire region. That's a big problem. Also, the Busan government, Busan and Ulsan and Gyeongnam they have totally different ideas about the transit system, transit service about that. Some are they consent, some are they have an entire different ideas. Okay? They don't want some good service, good transit services, because of they afraid that transit service destroys their economy. That's a huge problem. I don't know why. I only answer your last questions about that. There's a clear benefit.
Very supporting the strong MTA. I think perhaps the Ulgyang, Ulsan, and the Busan area as a metropolitan region, the people are worrying about the operational deficit in case of the MTA service, perhaps. So I think it's theoretically MTA is good. But in reality, it might or might not. It depending on the performance of the MTA. So let's see another discussion. Okay, I think I saw this from here to this order.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I have much time.
Okay. Go. You have a second discussion if you like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is two presentation. It's very informative to me, and the Steve presented three different cases, and I find out it's kind of a question. The three cases of Europe only focusing on operation and the bus, not railway at all. That's very strange to me. The first question, why the MTA in three different big cities are focusing only on operation and the bus, not railway? That's my first question. Second one is...
It's not true.
Is it? But this is...
Okay.
Okay. The second question is no construction at all. It's a little different from what we are thinking about the MTA in Seoul. That's my second question. And my third question is, can you give us kind of a failure experience rather than just historical issues? Okay, we did this kind of thing, and finally we failed, something like that. We would like to get that kind of information. That's my three questions. And one more question is...
too many questions.
As far as I know, the Japan case, and I think the Japan case is much similar to us, but you only focus on three different Europe cities. So I'd like to ask if you can give kind of some information about Japan, Tokyo. Okay. And this one is my comment now. I think in order to make our MTA successful, we have to get very strong legal status in terms of 3 points. First one is budget. Steve present almost 8 billion euro in Paris per year, and 10 billion euro in London, and 4 billion in Barcelona. But in Korea, less than 1 billion. So is it possible to get this much money, budget, in our case? The second one is planning issues. If we do planning, it is good symptom to make it successful, I think, because it's corridor.
So you say the planning is important? Huh?
Very important.
Okay.
Yeah. The budget and the planning. The last one is decision making. Actually, I prefer the committee rather than authority, because we have to solve, that's coordination ability. The commission is much better than to solve kind of a conflict rather than pushing by power. That's my comment.
So you are supporting commission than the authority?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. You want to answer? Okay.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, Tokyo doesn't have an MTA, and it has coordination problems. Mm-hmm. The government tries to get the private metro operators to build tunnels so that passengers can interchange between metro lines. In many cases, there's 2 stations close to each other, but if you want to interchange, you have to go out the station, walk through the street, and back in. And achieving this simple investment takes years of negotiation, even though the government offers to give them some subsidy to do it. So Tokyo is fantastic in many ways, but not for MTA. But now the 3 case studies, MTAs are responsible in London and Paris for running the metro service as well as the bus service. In Paris for running the rail, the surface rail. In London for running the new Crossrail, but not for the other surface mainline rail services. And they are responsible for maintenance, expenditure, reinvestment, refurbishment, and also for routine investment in the networks. But for very big projects like Crossrail and like the Métro de Grand Paris, which is being built now, they're so big, they're 40 billion euros expenditures, that it's a central government that's funding, because these are exceptional expansions. So just to correct that, they're responsible for all modes. Just London's a bit odd because they privatized the national rail system, and the national rail companies provide the commuter services as well as the long-distance services. But in Paris, they run all of the services.
So you are saying the TFL is only in charge of operation or maintenance?
No, TfL is in charge of operation, maintenance, and investment.
Investment as well?
Yeah.
But you said this investment is made by central government.
I said for routine investment, the small-scale investment.
Small-scale investment, large-scale investment by the government.
For big new expansions, like a totally new system, like Crossrail, which costs 40 billion euros.
Why do you say London has no MTA?
No, I didn't. I said Tokyo has no
Tokyo.
MTA.
Okay, sorry about that.
Because it doesn't.
Okay,
but London does.
Okay.
And the other thing that's important for Seoul is the way that they deal with the buses. I mean, in Seoul, as we saw from Jungwon's presentation, the big problem is buses serving Gyeonggi province. And what London does is concession them the right to operate the lines every 5 years. And 20% of the network at a time is always being reconcessioned. So they can change the conditions and they can change the routes. They have total control every 5 years of every line. And in Seoul, you have the strange situation that the bus operators think that the concession rights are like private property for the company, which wasn't the case and shouldn't be the case. And this will be your biggest headache.
Yes or no, later.
And the biggest opportunity to solve it with the MTA.
Okay. Professor Park?
Let me explain about what is happening in Daejeon area. Daejeon is about 2-hour driving distance from here. A new capital city, Sejong, is built near Daejeon, and the people are moving into this new city. Not all of them is from Daejeon, but quite a big portion of the moving people is from Daejeon. So the amount of commuting trips and intercity trips between Daejeon and Sejong is increasing very fast. So although still way less severe than Stockholm, I think I know the Stockholm. I think it's I think in the presentation material there expressed Stockholm. So this metropolitan area's transportation problem is also aggravated very fast according to the new city Sejong's growth. So there are conflicts of interest between Sejong and Daejeon, mainly in taxi and BRT, bus rapid transit line operation. Unfortunately, this conflict cannot be resolved, some kind of a give and take trade-off. In case of taxi, Daejeon wants to remove any barrier to get into Sejong, but city of Sejong doesn't want to, do not have any intention to remove this barrier for Sejong's taxi companies' benefit, sake. So in case of BRT line operation, the BRT line runs from Daejeon to Sejong to Osung, which is in the province of Chungbuk. The coordination of this BRT line operation is performed by a coordination committee under Haengbokcheong, which is the national government, which is in charge of building the new capital city. But this coordination committee have no legal authority. So the coordination of this BRT line operation is not, the committee, the coordination function of this committee is not working at all. So, this kind of situation tells us that we need some kind of authority or commission, whatever, with a very strong legal authority. So, to provide the desired transportation service in view of users' convenience, the MTA or commission, whatever, can force the desired plan for taxi or bus, whatever, to the local government with a strong legal authority. That is my own point.
Thank you very much. So the Professor Park, MTA for better coordination of transport service in the region. Okay, strong authority. Okay, thank you. Dr. Ji? Yeah.
Yes, I think the presentations cover all the pivotal issues regarding MTA or MTC in the Seoul metropolitan area. As emphasized, I also strongly believe that the effective MTA is very much essential in the Seoul metropolitan region. And to have an effective one, the existing CRTA has already shown us a very clear direction. What the current CLTA does not have are the very keys to the effective MTA. Among those, I'd like to mention three key points, which I think the most essential and the fundamental. Although it seems to be rather redundant. First is legislative support for its establishment to deal with transportation issues. And the second is budget sources of its own, which is enough to handle the needs and the demands of road users in the Seoul metropolitan region. And third is manpower. Especially, I think it is worthwhile to seriously consider to have directly elected officials solely for the MTA. If MTA is run by directly elected officials from the residents of Seoul metropolitan region, I believe officials can work boldly and rationally to resolve the metropolitan transportation problems efficiently. And to answer what the benefits might be for MTA in the metropolitan region, I think there are two very basic issues. The first one, MTA can make public transportation network more efficiently. For example, Seoul does not want Gyeonggi buses coming in their area. Their exclusion is traffic congestion. But they also know that many commuters are standing in the bus while they are commuting the peak hour. So I think it's not standable. Second one, the service level of public transportation. People know that they are more satisfied with the service of Seoul buses compared to the Gyeonggi buses. That's very awkward, but it is true in Seoul metropolitan area. because the bus drivers in Seoul City have higher salaries compared to the Gyeonggi. So if MTA can control the whole area, the service level can be evened, and also we can have more efficient public transportation network, I believe. So that's a very basic benefits, I guess.
I think Seoul City is much richer, more richer than Gyeonggi province, because Seoul City people pay more taxes. So I think it's if I'm not supporting the Seoul City, but Seoul City also has some reasonable excuse or reason, realistic reason to be against having more the Gyeonggi bus in the downtown into the downtown of Seoul City, I think. No, I'm not
yes,
arguing
yes,
with
I
you.
know. The point is this. The residents who live in the Seoul metropolitan area, they actually do not distinguish the boundary between two cities, I mean Seoul and Gyeonggi. They think they live in a one-day life zone. So they do not know which bus is Gyeonggi bus and which bus is Seoul bus actually.
Okay.
So we need one.
Okay. Okay. Later. Okay. Dr. Kim, Gyeonggi he's from the Gyeonggi province. Okay. Yeah. Gyeonggi province, the Gyeonggi-do, Gyeonggi-docheon?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'd like. Dr. Ji already talked about bus in regional buses. I'd like to support Dr. Ji because I'm from Gyeonggi province to represent those residents. I think we should think what actual benefit should the MTA give the residents in metropolitan area. I think in a regional bus is the most cheapest and fastest way to solve the metropolitan traffic problems. You should know the building railroad. We surely know the railroad is very environment friendly means of transportation to provide quick and punctual services. However, the cost of building and operating the big railroad network is too expensive to handle with our resources at this time. Korea will be super aged society in 2030s as senior citizens over 65 will account for 25% of the total populations. I think, as you know, they have in Korea those over 65 years of age are qualified to have receive a free survey pass in Korea, so they don't learn. The railroad companies are worrying that they won't even earn their operating expenses in the future. I think excessive railroad construction can be the big burden on our future generation to inherit what we leave behind. One thing I'd like to talk to you is, according to Dr. Mo's research, I believe MTA will be very helpful in improving traffic problems in the metropolitan areas by having legal authority, independent financial resources, and independent organization. However, I'm very sorry that the MTA designed by Dr. Mo has only the function of coordinating and planning in a regional bus transportation policies in the metropolitan areas. What is important is that we can solve many traffic problems through the establishment of new bus routes and improvement of new existing transportation infrastructure and system. More buses will get rid of traffic jams by moving within regions. I believe MTA in South Korea to be established in the future must deliver bus services at the metropolitan scale. About this point, like all the MTAs of the developed countries of Western OECD. Another thing is Dr. Perkins said MTA should have a formal authority with legal backing over specified territories, defined responsibilities. Unfortunately, now you know the amendment for setting up MTA in Korea proposed by BCS Park Sun-ja, a member of the National Assembly, will be referred to Land and Transport Affairs Committee later in this month. However, I'm sorry that it doesn't define the MPA's legal liability of delivering bus services at the metropolitan scale. With that law, I think we won't obtain what we want by creating MTA in this country. As Dr. Mo announced, CRTA was also established with its own original mission of coordinating transportation policies within local governments in Seoul's metropolitan area, but failed to reconcile the serious conflicts of in regional bus routes between Seoul and Gyeonggi. As you know, you must know why. CRTA doesn't run those international regional buses like MTA in Western developed countries. Its role of delivering wide area bus services was not even guaranteed by law. I'd like to conclude the debate by emphasizing this point as follows. MTA must deliver in a regional bus services for the entire administrative district of the Seoul metropolitan area to overcome regional conflicts. And for that happen, the role of regional bus operation must be defined by law. This is my discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. So later we may hear about the central government thought, because it's the MTA is under the central government. What I'm worrying from the new establishment of MTA is that we may confuse to distinguish what is the coordination efforts of MTA with some general more investment to solve the existing transport problems, something like this. Okay, so because I mentioned about that problem is the Ministry of Finance is much worrying about the budget matter, financing matter. because in order to solve all the problems, and then it requires a huge budget for the new investment, actually, and then it does not work very well. From the point of the Ministry of Finance. I'm not from Ministry of Finance, but it will cause some new problems, perhaps, I think. So every metropolitan region require more money for the investment to resolve the problem, something like this. So that is the task of the monitor, to how to balance between the existing problems, new coordination, something like this. So in some sense, it might be necessary to confine the function of MTA, maybe only for coordination or integration matters, I think. That is my current think from the Steve Perkins' presentation, something like this. Okay, let me go to the Pinya. Okay, yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for this two wonderful presentations. It's actually very timely for me because we are discussing the same issue in our program in China, where we're working to discuss the establishment of metropolitan-wide transport institutions. When the ITF report came out and I got on my inbox, I forwarded immediately to my team and said, okay, read this report and let's discuss and then see how we can apply it. So we're actually having a kind of animated discussion about MTS and PO. So very timely, so I'm very happy to be here for that reason as well, so I'm learning quite a bit. So I think my discussion, I like to maybe structure it maybe in 4 aspects. One is the sort of the political economy of an MTA, and whether the question you posed, Dr. O, whether an MTA kind of format fits into the political structure, the decentralized governance structure of that aspect. The second one I would like to discuss is on the fiscal framework. Who has the money? Who's going to pay for the infrastructure? What is the role of the central government? Do they actually give money, or is all the money coming from the local jurisdictions? Third is on planning. Who plans? And also how planning is determined, whether it's at the local level or at the MTA level, and then who decides to fund what? And the fourth is on service operation. So I think it's important to clarify what our objective of establishing an MTA is. I think that's the question also coming from Dr. O. Do we want just a public transport authority that's going to provide service within the municipality, within the greater area, or we want the MPO to also be, the MTA to also be in charge of the planning for the whole region? I think from what I understand, probably it's both. But then we have the political issue here in the fact that these 3 different municipal governments, or provincial governments as you call them here, are quite decentralized, quite their own. So we have the London example that Steve presented, that sort of the political jurisdiction is similar to the MTA, to the Transport for London, if I understood it correctly, because the mayor oversees the Greater London area, and the Transport Authority is also in the same jurisdiction. So you have a political overlap, if you will. Now, in the case of the US, it's very different. The US has both MPO and actually MTA type. The Washington example that he gave, Chang-Won, probably is the one that you want to avoid. It wasn't, sorry to be like that, but the reason is the WMATA has this, okay, they have these 3 different governments, and the federal government is there. Because federal government has historically been part of the Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, so they are there because they control D.C.'s finances or whatever, and they're there. But if you go to the Los Angeles greater area, the SCAG, the Southern California Association of Government, which is really a fantastic institution for planning and modeling, you can look at that as a model for MPO. But within that, there is also the Los Angeles Transport Authority, MTA, that actually provides public transport services across the Los Angeles County. So you have Los Angeles, ruled by the mayor, with an MTA, and then you have an MPO, which covers a much wider region that provides a coordinating body or planning. Now, so it's important, I think, to fit whatever you propose to your political structure here. I don't know much about Korean decentralized governance, but from what I'm hearing, there is no decentralized governance, so you don't want to contradict that. But I think you can achieve it without contradicting that, in the way that maybe the US is also a decentralized federal country, so they seem to have that. So maybe it's not the Transport for London approach, but maybe it could be the Los Angeles kind of system that you have, but you have to look at it. There was a point that you say that this has to be driven by the central government. I think the central government can encourage it, but I would have thought this should be led by the local governments. The local governments should come to coordinate themselves. The incentive has to come from them to actually coordinate and plan, because then the minute you get a central government active role in the coordination becomes, then that's where the political problem comes. But in the case of the US, the way they address it is all the local, the MPO's plans, they are related to the fiscal system. So this is where the fiscal system is important. When the federal government in the US provides federal transfers for transportation, the key requirement is that each local government, each local jurisdiction that is going to have any investment program, its investment plan has to fit into the MPO's overall plan, into the regional plan. So, you know, you're, for example, Santa Monica in the Los Angeles area. If you want to get a federal subsidy for your transportation improvement, the transportation plan has to be consistent and part of the regional plan. So this way, there is an important hook, an important incentive for local jurisdictions to abide by the regional plan. So there are a variety of ways I think you can achieve a coordinating planning on this regard. So the kind again exactly is that the fiscal framework again here. I don't know in Korea, what is it, or what the transportation investments, what proportion of the money comes from federal government, from local government, provinces. That would be an interesting thing to understand, because if you want them to give up power, they will also have to give up the finances with it. So the dedicated funding, that is a key for successful MTA, will depend on the willingness of the subnational government, the local governments, to actually surrender the revenue for that. So it's important to know. Otherwise, if the central government, it will be interesting to hear the central government's view on this. If there is a major transfer of money from the central government, then that would be a very nice hook of ensuring that planning follows the finances. So there is a kind of a coordination between what is being planned and what is being financed. So that's the key. Now, in terms of the whole planning, I think, again, now we have many institutions that actually hold regional models for planning. So one of the functions of an MTA would be to actually plan at the regional level. Now, it will be then important to develop a model that actually will look at the traffic flows, the new traffic patterns, that would actually then see that. As is the experience in the US, many of the travel patterns change over time in the region. Rather than moving, for example, from suburb to downtown, there's quite a lot of suburb to suburb movement. So this kind of planning will be important as well. The coordination becomes important, because right now maybe most people are coming to Seoul from the surrounding area, but eventually as economic activities increase across the different parts of the region, you can imagine that many of the traffic patterns will be moving across the region. So, if you will, one of the greater benefits of the MTA would be then to plan for this new traffic pattern that we actually may not see now, and local governments don't see. Maybe their view is to think in terms of, okay, how can we give service to the downtown area, while actually many people are thinking, how can we go to the other suburb to go work there? So this has been the key, especially as jobs move. So if jobs are going to move to the Incheon area, other people are going to want to work not only from Incheon, but from the nearby suburbs as well. So this is an important, I think, planning function that the MTA can to do. So again, I think on the service delivery, we should also keep in mind that there will be local services. MTA, yeah, is not a panacea. It's not like going to solve all your problems. There will still be local problems. I think it's very important for the interregional transportation, coordination and planning. But if you still see that picture after establish an MTA, don't be disappointed, just as a warning. Okay. But at least what I want to say is, you also don't forget the local, even in the Washington area, there is Maryland that provides services for its own. Virginia has its own. Washington, D.C. also has its own bus services. So local services will continue to be important as well. But clearly, the regional transportation plan, services will be important. Now, back to the WMATA issue. So the Washington Metro, as you showed in the news, it's really a disaster. Even though you have the three governments there, their funding, it's actually might be worthwhile to study a little bit more in detail why they haven't been able to cooperate to provide good services. One of the reasons that people have said is the way the funding is decided. Each year, the funding has to be politically decided by Maryland and Virginia jurisdictions, a political process every year. And for that reason, there's always delays or not enough funding. So I think that would be a good case study to learn a little bit more in detail, so that when you formulate your MTA, then you want to avoid the pitfalls of the Washington Metropolitan Transport Authority. Then finally, I think the role of technology is becoming increasingly important. I think there's a lot of people who specialize here in ITS. So more information is coming from different sources. I think China, in Beijing, for example, they have a digital platform in the Transport Research Institute where all the information from the different jurisdictions are collected into a big digital platform. I don't know whether the Seoul metropolitan region has that kind of information. The buses, the metros, even the airport, the taxis that are going around the city and the traffic condition, all the information is consolidated in a digital platform, and that is used for planning services, for operations, and for giving people service. So again, I think this is great stuff. Very good presentation. Thank you for all the presentation, and yeah, so this is my comment. Thank you.
Okay, very useful comment. Dr. Kwon, can you make it very short? I'm sorry about that.
I just make it short. Just three things. One thing is that to solve the metropolitan transport problem is not is exceeding the boundary of city area, so the city government cannot solve this problem. And in Korea, the central government tried to solve this problem. In 2007, the central government made the Metropolitan Transport Management Special Act, but still we have metropolitan transport problems. the main reason is that we don't have a metropolitan government. But Dr. Mo said that the metropolitan government is not possible in Korea. So the MTA is, I think, the second best solution. So as Stephen said that the MTA should have a independent budget and decision-making power and experts. So I think to solve this problem, I think MTA is better than the MTE, Metropolitan Transport MTC Commission. Second is that the independent power and independent budget is important, but before that, I think we have to define the specific role and tasks of MTA or MTE. For example, London, Paris, or Tokyo, for commuting travel, I think 90%, over 90% travels made by rail, not by private car or bus. But in Korea, in Seoul metropolitan area, 40% shared by private car and 25% shared by bus, 25% shared by rail. So we have to raise this share of rail from 25 to more than 90. So I think the MTA or MTE should make this problem. And in Seoul metropolitan area, we have integrated fare and payment system, but we don't have a metropolitan transfer center. So I think it is also another task of MTA or MTE. So the main function or main role of MTA or MTE is to provide seamless connectivity for metropolitan travels. Lastly, I think the Reza said that the metropolitan transport planning should have a connection with the national transport planning and city transport planning. So the metropolitan transport planning should be reflected in the national transport planning, and also the city planning, the city transport planning should take metropolitan transport planning as a mother planning. I think that's all. Thank you.
As I said before, I have been in Supreme Court because revenue allocation, because of revenue allocation problems. So people go further about MTA. I would like to have experience with you about this problem. Actually, revenue allocation is come from integrated transfer system in capitalism. Component of integrated transfer fare system consists of fare charge and revenue allocation and financial support. As you know, all of these related to the revenue allocation problem. So we have to solve this problem. I think the major role of MTA should be take a tackle on this revenue allocation problem. So I would like to raise two questions. One is currently we have Metropolitan Transport Authority. So this authority can be replaced by new MTA. Another is currently MTA, the role of MTA might be very focused on infrastructure, such as like bus system or BRT system. So I think in my idea, we may need to more emphasis on the operating things of MTAs. That's my idea. Okay, thank you.
Difficult with the resettlement of the payment and the revenue among the stakeholders, operators. I think so. Transit. Okay, stakeholder. Okay, Dr. Lee. Yeah.
Today we are talking about a successful model for introducing Korean MTA or MTC. I'll briefly discuss three main issues relate these topics. The first is fostering public awareness. The second is the considering of the policy involvement, including decentralizations. The third issue is making a really workable Korean MTA. Let me know more details in Korean because the most attendees are familiar with Koreans, if possible. 예, 의미 전달도 분명할 것 같아서 한 세 가지만 간단히 한국어로 말씀드리겠습니다. 죄송하고요. 저는 분명하게 이 이슈에 대해서는 국민적 공감대가 필요하다고 생각합니다. 오늘 서울시 참석 안 하셨는데요. 서울시는 아마 이 입장에 대해서 굉장히 좀 광역교통 문제에 대해서는 네거티브한 입장을 가지고 있는 것 같습니다. 지 박사님과 우리 김 과장님께서 경기도 버스 문제에 대해서 굉장히 이슈를 제기하셨는데요. 저도 그런 문제들을 2006년도 수도권 광역교통 시스템 구축 운영 실태 감사를 통해서 경험한 적이 있습니다. 그랬는데도 저희가 감사원에서도 한 10여 년 전 감사를 해서 조금 권고해 드렸는데도 이 문제가 아직까지도 굉장히 정책적 이슈로 남아있는 것 같습니다. 제가 경험한 감사사항은 이런 거였습니다. 대표적인 거 하나 말씀드리면요. 서울시계의회의 강서구에서 강서 양선 쪽에서 부천시로 연계하는 광역도로가 있습니다. 이제 주로 우리 국토부에서는 5km 정도의 광역도로를 붙이는데요. 국토부에서 예산을 내려 보내줬습니다. 근데 인천시는 지었고요. 제각 준공 이전 6개월 전에 지었습니다. 근데 서울시는 7, 8년 동안 짓고 있지 않아서 저희가 조속히 예산 집행하라고 해서 지어졌거든요. 이만큼 서울시에서는 자기 권역에 경기도 도로를 붙이는 것 자체에 대해서 거부감을 가지고 있는 것 같았습니다. 물론 버스 문제, 서울시 BRT나 환승버스 문제도 마찬가지였고요. 이렇게 우리가 직면한 광역교통 문제에 대한 인식의 틀이 굉장히 다르다는, 그래서 이 문제를 해결하기 위해서는 우리가 같은 국민적인 공감대가 충분히 형성돼야 한다는 문제를 좀 제시하고 싶고요. 첫째로 이제 이런 MTA를 만들어서 광역교통 시스템을 적극적으로 우리가 구축하는 데에서는 굉장히 긍정적인 효과가 클 겁니다. 그러니까 유틸리테리안적인 측면에서는 분명히 효용이 클 거고요. 다만 그 과정에서 위너와 루저가 발생합니다. 그러면 위너는 지금 경기도에서 빨리 들어올 수 있는 사람일 거고요. 루저는 안락하게 자기 집 앞을 거닐 수 있는 사람들이 광역도로나 광역도로의 혼잡이나 오염을 이제 경험해야 되는 거죠. 그래서 저는 이런 문제에 대해서는 좀 더 정치적이든 합의든 이런 문제들이 좀 필요하고요. 그래서 우리가 서울시는 그 주택가 서울시의 주택 안정 정책은 경기도의 시장 공급으로 이루어집니다. 그리고 그 사람들은 빠른 교통수단이 필요한 것이고요. 그래서 우리가 이렇게 상생이 필요하다는 것을 조금 공감대를 형성해야 되고요. 또 서울시가 얼마나 경기도의 주택 문제나 그 환경 문제를 빚지고 있습니까? 그래서 이런 것들을 열어놓고 토의할 수 있는 합의제 기구들이 필요하다는 생각을 가지고 있습니다. 자연스럽게 이제 두 번째 이슈로 좀 넘어가야겠는데요. 우리는 뭐 이제 아시아를 넘어서 최고 수준의 민주국가로 향해 가고 있습니다. 국민 주권들이 많이 진전됐고요. 자기 문제는 자기 스스로 해결하겠다는 지방자치가 실질적으로 분출하고 있습니다. 이 지방 분권 촉진하기 위해서는 우리 정부도 현재 주민의 참여를 독려해서 이런 문제들을 스스로 유도해 나가고 있는데요. 이를 위해서 광역교통 문제를 예산 배정부터 유지 관리까지 일원화하는 행정체계를 정립하고 관리하는데 정부와 지자체의 합의체 기구가 분명히 필요한 것 같습니다. 그렇지만 그 국토부의 하나 브랜치로서의 청단이나 지금 같은 어서러티가 없는 조합으로서는 한계가 있고요. 그 중간점에 우리가 적절한 행정체계를 조직을 갖추어야 될 것 같습니다. 분명한 것은 초기에는 중앙정부가 이니셔티브를 조금 지더라도 프랑스의 지금 일드 프랑스 모빌러티처럼 그보다 더한 능가하는 수준의 지방자치의 자유를 충분히 보장할 수 있는 단계를 전제로 목표로 해서 차근차근 준비를 해 나가야만이 자치단체도 설득이 가능하다는 것을 우리 중앙정부가 분명하게 인식해야 될 것 같습니다. 초기에 우리가 이니셔티브를 지는 것은 한시적이고 초기에 법제도와 인프라를 깔기 위한 기본 그것이라는 것을 하고 우리가 지향점은 자치단체의 완전한 이양이라는 점을 분명히 해두어야 될 것 같고요. 세 번째는 이제 MTA 조직의 성공을 위해서는 조금 현실적인 어떤 모델이 우리가 만들 수 있는지 고민해야 됩니다. 첫째는 수도권 교통조합이 왜 실패했는지 그 원인을 철저하게 분석해야 되고요. 국내 정치적, 물리적 환경에 실제 가능한 모델이 무엇인지를 다음으로 고민을 해야 될 것입니다. 그렇기 위해서는 예산 편성부터 이제 유지 관리까지 원스톱으로 광역교통을 행정을 처리할 수 있는 기구, 조직, 의사결정 체계, 전문성 있는 인적 구성, 그리고 조직은 무엇서 인사권을 그 자체에서 가지고 있어야 됩니다. 그게 공무원 조직에 또한 생명력을 부어넣을 수 있기 때문이죠. 그래서 중앙 부처와 지자체가 물리적인 단순 결합 또는 중앙부처의 브랜치가 아니라 화학적인 결합을 만들 수 있는 실질적인 기구가 돼야 되고요. 이를 스터디할 수 있는 하나의 방법은 지금은 해외 사례의 연구들은 저희가 충분히 거의 되어 있다고 봅니다. 반면에 우리 행정체계 내에서 실질적으로 작동 가능한 합의제 정책 의결 기구가 어떤 건지, 어떤 것이 성공했고 어떤 것이 실패했는지 그것들을 좀 잘 연구해서요. 한국에서 작동 가능한 행정기구, 행정체계에 MPO의 기능들을 역으로 입힐 수 있으면 현실적인 한국형 MTA, MTC를 만들 수 있는 기본적인 모델이 되지 않을까 생각합니다. 이상으로 제 의견을 좀 줄이고요. 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.
세미나 내용을 잘 반영을 해가지고 굉장히 좋은 디스커션 해줬네요. I think it's very good discussion, very useful, very advanced idea. 양 사무관님 오래 기다렸죠. 네.
Yeah. Finally, this is my time. I can explain further detailed things about why we discussed why we changed our plan to make the organization. But at this time, I will say and speak. I will give you explanation in English. Okay, past 2 years, we are trying to make MTA. It's very hard time to me and my coworkers because many other ministry and other organization don't want to make it. at the time last year in this season we have a very strong vice minister whose name is Meng Sang-gyu. He really want to make MTA, and we almost are taking the National Assembly to pass the law. But as you know, we don't have an agreement with another organization like Minister of Administration. Finally, we failed it. Our law is blocked, and also we have a hard time after that. First, the Minister of Administration request us we have to change the type of organization. They said that the authority is CEO of the authority have too strong power that can be weaken the local government's power. Yeah, that means we should have changed the organization type, and also our Prime Minister adjust our plan. Now we changed our plan to make the MTC, but we agreed that we only change the decision-making process. We are not changing the power, another powers like budget or making policies and doing many making steps. But after that, we make the new law about the MTC, but the Ministry of the Budget disagreed it again because of the power of budget is too much for committees. They said. Anyway, we are trying to find a solution with this, but nowadays we are decided to make MPCs now. First of all, the reason of this decision is as you know, MTC is very small organization, but they don't have we think it's burden to them to conduct audit themselves, and also many people insist that the Minister of Land Infrastructure Transport must help them. First, okay, and also we decide that we're making some interesting policies, like to strengthen the power of MTC, like some important policies conducting without pre-investigation by Ministry of Budget, and also we'll give them the power of choice to which projects not receive the feasibility study. And also we think that this organization is not perfect. We know that, but the timing is very important to make this organization. Start is more important. Actually, please understand our decisions. And if you want more detail, please email to me, and I can explain in Korea. Thank you.
It's according to the Mr. Yang's what is the explanation, MCC is much downgraded from the MTA in terms of budget power and the state capacity, any powers, okay? But you said this morning on phone, MTA is exactly the same as MTC except the name, you said to me. So it is very confusing to, very confused over the actual, what is the details of the MTC compared with the MTA, actually. I think it's I like to hear from Dr. Mo, and then Steve, and then necessarily Dr. Mo again, and then I will conclude it, all right? Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to, thank you for your comment.
Very short.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. All of it, it was very interesting to hear those comments. And first of all, it's, I participate in the making of the new, okay, you can say MTC or MTA. It's in fact, it is MTA, I think. So it has, it's not exactly same. It cannot be same, definitely, because it's one. Before it was like authority. It was and it located in the outside of the mullet. But right now, it's this MTC is located under the Ministry of the mullet. So under the so it's different, and there is some weaker the function in there, but it's they still have about 100 number of the staff will be working in there, and also they also have all those many functions in the MTC. That's the reason is I think it's still this is not just like we say just okay, it's committee. Committee is usually is very weak, but this committee is different from other committee. So it's a little bit. It has some power inside this committee. So, and also it has steps in there. So I think the human resource is most important. If they work very hard, they can expand their power and also budget and also like legal power, whatever. If those human resources are working in that, the organization is most important. So they can. Right now, it's just they are going to start and expand their power. Yeah. Okay.
No, that's very interesting and very helpful clarification. Now, for me, the points raised by Sigong Kim and Ji Oh-sok are very important about the balance of democratic responsibility, accountability, and power in this organization. And the slide on page 30 of Dr. Mo's presentation, which summarizes the way the responsibilities are split in the board of Île-de-France Mobilité, is critical. And it's where most of the struggle has been as the MTA in Paris has evolved. And at the moment, you see it's carefully balanced between 14 people in the region, from the regional government, and 14 people from the lower levels of government, from the city of Paris, from the districts, and so on. And so normally, this body works cohesively together, even though at the moment the Paris, and usually the Paris government and the region government come from opposite parties, and in many ways their leaders fight and hate each other. But inside this organization, they operate as a functional group of people trying to address the same problems. Usually they reach a majority decision. Of course, if there's a 14-14 split, it's the chairwoman who decides, and she is the head of the regional government. Up until the latest reform, the chairman was from a central government appointee, but it was already some kind of territorial regional organization, because the central government in France has always appointed people they called prefects, préfets, to represent the state, the central government, on the ground around the countryside in France, or around the cities in France. Since decentralization, it's organized around about 15 regions across the country, and the Île-de-France is one of these regions. So even before they created the latest round of decentralization, they had a central government member as the chair, but there was the prefect, so already had a regional responsibility, but representing the state. So it's been an evolution downwards to now to the fully decentralized region. So what it means for Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi is that you need to create a similar structure that will have appropriate representation of the three existing governments, Seoul, Incheon, and the province. But you'll also need to make a place for the small district governments, the lowest level of government, and you'll need a representative that kind of is speaking on their behalf. So structuring that is going to be important. I think at the moment I can't see an independent person that could be the chair other than the central government in one form or another. But in the future, you might switch to somebody else, depending on how the organization of power, political power in the country evolves. I guess Seoul and Incheon are kind of equal weights. If you put Seoul in charge, you continue to have the problem of the MTA not being really interested in the surrounding province. If you put the province in charge, that would probably be a better balance. But given the weight of Seoul, it would be difficult to imagine that would happen. What's driven it in Paris, in France, has been also where the funding has come from. And with successive reforms, money has been taken away from the lower levels of government and given to the MTA. So that's why they have quite a reasonably effective representation in the current board of the Île-de-France Mobilité. Here, as I understand it, the funding will be transferred from existing central government expenditure to be given to a budget for the MTC. So again, that makes sense that it would be the central government that chairs the organization. But those are the kind of issues you need to resolve in setting up something that, as somebody said, you don't really want to have a power just imposed externally from the top. You need an element of that to make things work, but if you only have that, it will be difficult to make it function, because from the bottom you'll get a lot of resistance. So you need to find a formula that reflects the fiscal reality of where the money's coming from, which is central government, but also gives space for the lower level governments that currently have most of the control.
Thank you very much for informative, insightful discussions. And I have one question. But this I have not asked before, but I was thinking about all the time. Why we are talking about transport only? Why limit our topic in in transport. Because the cities and the province, municipality, all they are rely on to each other. And Seoul has a big issue on waste, treating waste or sewage or funeral facilities. So if you include the other very serious issues on urban area, so the stakeholders have something to trade, barter between the facility and investment. So it may make a problem more complicated, but however, it is worth to consider to expand the scope of the authority. Anybody can answer? Thank you. No, not supporting, but they are something.
Yeah. Oh, may I? Yeah. I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Binyam Leja. So you mentioned about Wamata is the worst case of MTA. Yeah. No, but that is the very similar case of the Seoul, the national, here Korean case. That's the reason I have interest in that case. It's other case in Europe and other cases in the United States, like Chicago. Those cases under one state, like New York, one state, New York State. State governor has power. He can do anything. Also, Chicago, CTA, also the Illinois, they have power. But this one is separated. That is the reason why I studied Wamata. Wamata is very similar to this, Seoul, this metropolitan area. It's because this Seoul city mayor is very powerful. Like it's a Seoul mayor is not just to follow the command of the Ministry of the Land and Transport. He's the minister cannot impose his command onto him or her. Also, like a Gyeonggi province governor, has much stronger political power. That's the reason I think it's Wamata is very Wamata and TPB is very similar, but this problem. That's the reason I propose that one is like the budget dispute and also the operating deficit. All those things. That one. It's the Paris and London case and or Chicago, Illinois, Portland. Those cases are not same like Korean case. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Later you discuss more. Okay. I think I always thought is the the integration effort and level in Seoul metropolitan area, especially the transportation integration, the level, is very splendid and also very successful. I presented, I said when I went out overseas for the conferences, and then I said is the public transportation integration is very successful and very well organized, something like this. But I think it's today we are we may have more things to do for better coordination, better service, I think. So today we had a lot of good two good presentations, a lot of very useful discussions, and then now is it seems the MTC new legislation might go ahead, and then hopefully maybe next year, early next year, it will be institutionalized, and then we may go with some new establishment of the MTA and also the operation of MTA, and then I hope the the Ministry of the Mobility should work very hard to make new MTA workable and successful in the future. I think I feel many things to think about for the successful the management and operation of the new MTA. I think. Okay. Thank you very much for the almost over 3.5 hours discussions and presentations. Is that all right for you? Okay. Thank you very much.
You have something to say.
Do you want to say something?
Well, the only thing I wanted to respond to Peter, and that environment, water, sewage, they have been integrated. Even in Barcelona, one of the steps was to integrate the 3 environment, transport, and planning into a single AMB authority in Barcelona as part of the overall process. And of course, as Dr. Mo says, now in Paris, we're aligned with the region, which has responsibilities mainly for housing, how it's going to be developed, where it's going to be developed, what the master plan is. And the Greater London Authority for the central part does. But the big movement now in the UK as well is to try and integrate the transport planning with housing planning and water utility planning and electricity planning. So that's another part of the story. It's not instead of, it's as well of, whether we like it or not. But, and yeah, if we could have a proper functioning MTA in Washington, it could be the model. The trouble is they don't reach agreement on financial deficits, and they run a lousy system, which is poorly planned and has problems of maintenance, and also the scope of the public transport services. So I can see precisely your point, and maybe if you can improve on what they do and match it with your much higher quality public transport services, then that could, but I think here you're going to produce something unique that matches your specific context. But you need to, I think, replicate the power sharing that they have in France with the real character of the government that you have here in Korea. And I just hope the Commission is a big step in the way of getting there. It'll take more steps afterwards, but you do need to break this logjam because so many of the commuters suffer very long journeys, 2 hours in very poor conditions, especially the poorer people coming from further out who can't afford the high prices in Seoul. And meeting the needs of those people is absolutely critical, and the government will suffer if they don't meet the needs of those people, I mean the national government.